Hi everyone, today we're going to be reviewing over all the different quadrilaterals we've learned. We have on this page at the top row a whole bunch of parallelograms, and the bottom row a rectangle and some rhombuses. The one thing to remember is that rectangles, rhombuses, and squares are types of parallelograms, so the different properties we were doing of parallelograms also apply to any of these shapes. Not to kites, not to trapezoids, but to the other shapes right here. So when you see two sides of a shape, opposite sides are congruent. You just set them equal. The first side equals the second side. Even if it's a rectangle, this side 3w minus 4, oh, it doesn't match up with anything. But this top side does match up with the bottom, so the first side equals the second side. Same idea with angles. If they're across the picture, completely opposite, they're congruent. Like here and here. 4b minus 1 equals 6b plus 11. Same thing here. Don't worry if there's something weird and extra. The opposite angles are congruent. 7x minus 9 equals 8x minus 33. What if they're not opposite angles? What if you have an acute angle and an obtuse angle? And these are called consecutive angles. They're supplementary. And this is the only situation where you'll add angles up to a total of 180. Same thing if there is a more complicated looking picture. You take the two angles. Don't worry about that 4y plus 7. It's a side. It has nothing to do with angles. And the two angles add up to a total of 180. Lastly on this page, diagonals bisect. The two pieces are equal. First piece equals the second piece. Same thing here. This piece matches up here. There's nothing there though. I know you see that 9z minus 1, but there's a degree symbol. That's an angle. So we have a 9z minus 1, that doesn't match up with anything. We have the z plus 16, that doesn't match up with anything. We have the 3z plus 4, doesn't match up with anything. But we have this 5z minus 8, matches up with 8z minus 20. And so a lot of what we're doing here is just setting the correct two things equal with algebra. What if we have rhombuses? Same idea in a lot of respects, but there were some things with angles that were more complicated. So with sides of a rhombus, when there's no diagonals in the picture, not only is the left side equal to the right side, but the top's equal to the bottom. Just set them equal. The more complicated problems are when you had these problems right here, where the sides were equal, making an isosceles triangle. You had to do 180-degree math because it's a triangle. Because it was isosceles, there was some divided by 2 math, and you got 55. When you got to the harder problems with rhombuses, what we've been doing is taking the algebra equal to that number. 3x plus 1 equals not the 70 in the beginning, but 55. And when there was two diagonals, we had to remember there was a 90-degree angle here in the middle. So when we use the 180 math, 180 minus 29 and minus a number 90 that's not printed in the problem, but we can see in the middle of the picture, gives us an answer of 61. And then the whole idea of solving the algebra is the algebra in the problem equals that number. 4x plus 5 equals 61, and you'd solve it like that. So rhombuses can be a little bit more complicated. The nice thing is it just depends on, do they have 0 diagonals, like the first picture on the left, 1 diagonal like the picture in the middle, or 2 diagonals in the picture on the right. So when you're trying to differentiate this, you'll come back to this video and or your notes, and you'll make sure you do the right problem for the right picture. Last topics, isosceles, trapezoids, and kites. Some of my CP students, you're hearing this and you haven't worked on these yet, but there's a lot of things here that are pretty simple and a couple things at the bottom that will be good to do. And AC students, you have an assessment on this week, and this is stuff you've been seeing before. Simple enough, isosceles, trapezoids are isosceles. The two sides are equal. Isosceles, trapezoids are isosceles. The two angles are equal. Excuse me about that. And then you have to make sure that if you're trying to find out angles that are not congruent, it has to do with the same thing with parallelograms, that consecutive angles are supplementary. So this angle down here is 62, and this angle over here is 62. If you have diagonals, one diagonal, EG, one diagonal, FH, they're just equal to each other. 2x plus 9 equals 3x minus 7. Kites, we learned a couple different rules for them. You could do the isosceles triangle rule and divide them into two isosceles triangles, but we learned that the angles total 360. And so one of the easiest ways to do it is take 360 minus both the other angles. You're left with a weird big number, 190 here. And that's not the final answer because there's two angles left over that are congruent. This angle on the left in red is equal to this angle on the right in red. So you divide it by 2, and the answer is 95. Angle J is 95 degrees. Lastly, kites can use the Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So be careful that the side here of 50, the outside of the kite, is the hypotenuse. From there, you just use the Pythagorean theorem. Not too bad, not too hard. Comes out to a very big number here at first, 2304. But if you take the square root of 2304 on a calculator, turns out the square root of 2304 works out really nicely just to the number 48, and you get a nice whole number answer. That concludes this lesson on quadrilateral review. This is the topics that for the AC classes you'll have an assessment on. And for CP classes, you're just going to be working on today. All classes today, you're going to be doing something through Master Manager Online, that ExamLogin. This is just a review, and it's designed for you to simply make sure you're not just completely randomly guessing. So there's 18 questions to get a 100% participation grade. All you need to do is get a 9 out of 18. A very short, simple thing. This one, uncompared to some of the other ones, I'm really interested in you making sure you go back and check your wrong answers and figure out what you got wrong versus do you get an 18 out of 18 or a 16 out of 18 or a 10 out of 18? No, I don't really care too much about your score other than you're not randomly guessing. So don't just guess A for everything. Make sure you don't just set everything equal. But if you're stuck in some problems, take a look back at this video and try to match up which problem goes with which. You guys should be fine with getting well more than half of them right. And then review the ones you got wrong for the rest. For the AC classes, you'll need this for your assessment next class this week. And for CP, this is your assignment for the day. Take care, everybody, and I will talk with you later.